Most people think success begins when opportunities appear. They believe the right moment, the right connection, or the right situation will suddenly change everything. But success does not begin outside of you. It begins in the hidden conversations you have with yourself every single day. Before results become visible, your mindset has already been shaping them for years. The human mind is constantly accepting instructions. Every thought repeated enough times becomes a command. When a person repeatedly tells themselves they are weak, unlucky, or incapable, the mind slowly accepts those words as truth. Their actions become smaller, their confidence becomes fragile, their fear becomes stronger than their vision. Eventually they begin living inside limits they created themselves. But the opposite is also true. When someone trains their mind to believe growth is possible, their entire behavior changes. They start taking action before certainty appears. They stop waiting for perfect conditions. They become willing to fail, learn, adapt, and continue moving. The world often calls this confidence, but confidence is usually the result of mental conditioning repeated over time. Your habits are programming your future every day. The way you speak to yourself matters. The way you respond to failure matters. The people you surround yourself with matter. The content you consume matters. Everything entering your mind is shaping your identity. Many people want a better future while feeding their minds with doubt every day. They want discipline while practicing excuses. They want confidence while constantly comparing themselves to others. The mind cannot create greatness from inconsistent instructions. Mental programming explains why two people can face the same difficulty yet respond completely differently. One sees pain and stops moving. The other sees pain and becomes stronger. The difference is not talent alone. The difference is perspective trained through repetition. The strongest individuals understand that identity comes before achievement. They do not wake up every day asking whether they feel motivated. They act according to the person they have decided to become. Their standards remain stable even when emotions change. This is why small actions matter more than dramatic promises. Every time you wake up early when you do not feel like it, you are teaching your mind discipline. Every time you continue after disappointment, you are teaching your mind resilience. Every time you refuse distractions to focus on growth, you are teaching your mind control. Your future is built through these repeated instructions. The dangerous part about negative programming is that it often feels normal. People adapt to mediocrity slowly. They lower expectations quietly. They begin accepting average behavior because everyone around them accepts it too. Over time, they stop challenging themselves. They stop believing they are capable of more. But the moment a person changes their internal story, their direction changes, a new mindset creates new decisions. New decisions create new habits create a new identity, and eventually a new identity creates a new life. This is why successful people protect their mindset aggressively. They understand the mind is not neutral territory. If you do not intentionally program it for growth, fear and negativity will program it by default. Your environment either strengthens your vision or weakens it. Energy spreads between people. If you constantly surround yourself with negativity, excuses, and hopeless thinking, your own standards slowly decline. But when you place yourself near growth-minded individuals, your perspective expands. You begin seeing possibilities that once felt impossible. Success is not simply about working harder. Many exhausted people work hard without direction. Real success happens when effort is connected to belief, clarity, and purpose. A focused mind multiplies the power of action. The most powerful shift happens when you stop identifying with your current limitations. The person you are today is not permanently fixed. Your mind can adapt. Your habits can change. Your confidence can grow. Your future can expand beyond your current circumstances. But transformation requires repetition. One motivational moment will not permanently change your life. One inspiring video will not erase years of negative conditioning. Lasting success comes from daily mental training. The thoughts you repeat consistently become the reality you eventually experience. This means your future is being shaped right now, not next year, not someday, not when conditions improve. Right now, through your thoughts, decisions, standards, and actions, every day you are either strengthening the mindset required for success or reinforcing the mindset that keeps you stuck. There is no neutral direction. Your life follows the dominant instructions you continuously give your mind. The moment you realize your thoughts are building your future, you stop speaking carelessly about yourself. You stop treating your potential like something optional. You become intentional with your focus, your discipline, and your environment. Because eventually, your external world begins reflecting your internal programming, and when your mind finally believes growth is possible, your actions start creating proof that it always was. Your mind becomes the blueprint of the life you eventually live. Every action, every decision, every habit, and every standard begins as a thought before it becomes reality. Long before success appears in the external world, it is first built internally through belief, repetition, and mental conditioning. People often focus on changing their circumstances while ignoring the mindset creating those circumstances every single day. But the truth is simple. Your life consistently moves in the direction of your dominant thoughts. Most individuals underestimate the power of internal dialogue. They believe thoughts are temporary and harmless, yet the mind records repeated ideas like instructions. When fear, doubt, and insecurity are repeated long enough, they begin shaping behavior automatically. A person who constantly tells themselves they are incapable eventually stops taking risks. They stop aiming higher. They stop trusting their potential. Slowly, they begin creating a life smaller than the one they were capable of building. The opposite is equally powerful. A person who trains their mind to focus on growth begins behaving differently even before visible results appear. They become more willing to take action despite uncertainty. They recover faster from setbacks. They stop allowing temporary failures to define their identity. Their mindset creates resilience because their thoughts no longer work against their future. Every successful individual understands that the mind must be trained before results can be sustained. Temporary motivation is not enough. Excitement fades quickly when difficulties arrive. Mental programming is what determines whether a person continues moving when comfort disappears. The strongest people are not always the most talented. Often they are simply the ones who refuse to mentally surrender during difficult seasons. The human brain adapts to whatever it repeatedly experiences. This means your daily habits are constantly shaping your future identity. The content you consume, the conversations you entertain, the people surrounding you, and the thoughts you repeat all influence the person you are becoming. Nothing enters your mind without leaving influence behind. Negative environments create negative thinking. Disciplined environments create disciplined thinking. Growth or limitation is strengthened daily through exposure and repetition. Many people wait for confidence before taking action, but confidence is usually created after repeated action. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, your mind receives evidence that you are reliable. Every difficult task completed strengthens self-respect. Every disciplined decision teaches your brain that growth matters more than comfort. This is how powerful individuals are built. Not through one dramatic moment, but through consistent mental reinforcement over time. Your mindset also influences what opportunities you notice. Two people can stand in the same situation and see completely different possibilities. One sees obstacles everywhere. The other sees lessons, growth, and potential. Their environment may be identical, but their internal programming changes their perception. Your beliefs determine where your focus goes, and your focus eventually shapes your direction in life. Fear becomes dangerous when it controls decision-making. Many people spend years trapped inside imagined limitations because they accepted fear as truth. They avoid challenges to protect themselves from failure, yet avoiding growth creates a different type of failure altogether. The safest path emotionally often becomes the most destructive path long-term. A mind programmed for fear will always prioritize comfort over transformation. Strong individuals understand that discipline is a form of self-respect. They do not rely entirely on emotions because emotions constantly change. Instead, they create routines, standards, and habits that continue regardless of mood. This consistency strengthens identity. The more often a person acts with discipline, the more their mind accepts discipline as part of who they are. The most important battle in life is rarely external, it is internal. Winning internally changes how you respond externally. A focused mind creates focused actions. A resilient mind creates persistent behavior. A confident mind creates bold decisions. Everything visible in a person's life usually reflects something invisible happening inside their thinking patterns. This is why protecting your mindset matters so much. Every thought repeated daily becomes part of your future. Your mind does not simply observe your life, it helps create it. The standards you accept mentally become the standards you eventually live physically. If you constantly think small, your actions become cautious. If you train yourself to think with purpose, courage, and discipline, your behavior begins aligning with that vision. The life people experience years from now is often connected to the thoughts they are reinforcing today. Success is rarely an accident. It is usually the result of a person repeatedly training their mind to believe growth is possible, effort matters, and persistence will eventually create change. Every repeated thought trains your brain to accept either growth or limitation. The mind is constantly learning from what you repeatedly tell it. Whether those thoughts are positive or negative, empowering or destructive, the brain slowly adapts to them until they become part of your identity. Most people never realize how much their inner dialogue controls their future. They focus on changing external conditions while their thoughts continue reinforcing the same fears, doubts, and limitations that keep them stuck. Your brain responds to repetition more than occasional emotion. A single negative thought may not change your life, but repeating the same limiting belief every day eventually shapes behavior. When someone constantly thinks they are not capable, their actions begin reflecting hesitation. They stop taking risks. They avoid challenges. They settle for less because mentally they already accepted defeat before even trying. Over time, those repeated thoughts become invisible barriers controlling every major decision. The dangerous thing about limitation is that it rarely appears suddenly. It grows quietly through repeated mental patterns. People slowly convince themselves that certain goals are unrealistic, certain dreams are impossible, and certain levels of success belong only to others. The brain begins treating those assumptions like facts. Eventually, the person stops questioning their own limitations because their mind has practiced believing them for too long. Growth works the same way. When you repeatedly feed your mind with possibility, discipline, and belief, your behavior changes gradually. You begin seeing opportunities instead of only obstacles. You become more willing to learn, adapt, and continue despite discomfort. Growth-oriented thinking does not remove fear completely, but it prevents fear from controlling your direction. The brain begins expecting progress instead of failure because you trained it to focus on potential rather than limitation. Most individuals underestimate the influence of daily mental habits. The words spoken internally matter more than people realize. If someone constantly repeats thoughts connected to weakness, insecurity, and failure, the mind begins creating emotional patterns around those ideas. Confidence weakens, energy declines, motivation disappears faster. But when thoughts consistently reinforce resilience, purpose, and self-respect, the brain starts building emotional strength around those beliefs instead. Your environment also affects the thoughts you repeat. Conversation, social media, friendships, and daily influences all shape mental conditioning. Negative environments often normalize excuses, fear, and mediocrity. When people spend enough time surrounded by hopeless thinking, they eventually absorb it. The mind becomes programmed through exposure. This is why protecting your focus is necessary for growth. What enters your mind repeatedly eventually influences how you see yourself and your future. Many successful individuals develop powerful mindsets long before they developed visible success. They trained themselves to think differently during seasons when results were absent. While others focused on immediate comfort, they focused on long-term identity. They repeated thoughts connected to discipline, responsibility, and growth until those ideas became part of their character. Their success was not created in one moment. It was built mentally through repetition long before it appeared externally. The human brain naturally seeks familiarity. Whatever thoughts you repeat consistently begin feeling normal, even if they are destructive. A person who repeatedly expects disappointment eventually becomes comfortable with disappointment. A person who repeatedly trains themselves to pursue growth becomes more comfortable with discomfort and challenge. Repetition creates familiarity, and familiarity influences behavior more than temporary motivation ever can. This is why self-awareness matters. Many people are unconsciously training their minds every day without realizing it. Complaining repeatedly trains the brain to focus on problems. Comparing yourself constantly trains the brain to feel inadequate. Avoiding responsibility trains the brain to escape discomfort. Every repeated behavior strengthens a mental pattern. Eventually, those patterns become automatic responses shaping the quality of life a person experiences. Strong individuals understand that thoughts must be managed intentionally. They do not allow temporary emotions to define permanent identity. They challenge limiting beliefs instead of automatically accepting them. When setbacks happen, they focus on learning rather than surrendering. This mental discipline creates emotional resilience because their thoughts are aligned with progress instead of defeat. Growth begins internally before it becomes visible externally. A person changes mentally before their life changes physically. The repeated thoughts you choose today are quietly constructing your future identity. Your actions, confidence, standards, and direction all grow from what your mind accepts repeatedly as truth. Every thought becomes practice for the person you are becoming. If you repeatedly train your brain to focus on weakness, fear, and limitation, your future behavior will reflect those patterns. But if you intentionally repeat thoughts connected to discipline, possibility, resilience, and growth, your mind slowly begins supporting the life you are trying to create. The brain follows repeated instruction. Whatever you consistently tell yourself eventually becomes the foundation of how you live. Success begins long before results appear. It starts with internal belief. Before achievements become visible to the world, they are first developed quietly inside the mind. Every great accomplishment begins with someone believing in a possibility that has not yet become reality. Most people only recognize success after results appear, but the real transformation happens much earlier, during the unseen moments when a person chooses belief over doubt and persistence over fear. The difficult part about internal belief is that it usually develops when there is little external proof. Anyone can feel confident after winning, after recognition, or after success becomes obvious. But believing in yourself before visible evidence exists requires mental strength. It requires trusting your potential while circumstances still look uncertain. This is where most people stop. They wait for proof before taking action, not realizing that action itself is what eventually creates proof. Internal belief changes behavior immediately, even before outcomes improve. A person who genuinely believes growth is possible approaches challenges differently. They take more initiative. They recover faster from rejection. They become willing to fail because failure no longer feels like the end of their identity. Belief creates movement, and movement creates opportunity. Without belief, even talented individuals remain trapped by hesitation and fear. Many people misunderstand confidence. They think confidence comes after success, but in reality, confidence is often built through repeated moments of acting despite uncertainty. Internal belief allows people to continue when motivation disappears. It keeps them focused during slow progress. It gives them the ability to endure temporary struggle without mentally collapsing. The strongest individuals are rarely those who never face doubt. They are the ones who refuse to let doubt control their direction. Every major achievement in history once existed only as an idea inside someone's mind. Before businesses were built, before goals were reached, before movements changed the world, someone first believed something greater was possible. The external world always reflects an internal decision made earlier. People who create meaningful success usually strengthen their mindset long before their circumstances begin changing. This is why mindset matters more than temporary emotion. Emotions constantly fluctuate based on conditions, but belief creates consistency. A person with strong internal belief continues showing up even during difficult seasons because they understand growth takes time. They do not quit simply because progress feels invisible. They trust the process enough to continue building quietly while others lose patience. The absence of immediate results destroys many dreams. People often expect transformation to happen quickly, and when visible rewards do not appear fast enough, they begin doubting themselves. But success rarely develops in dramatic moments. It grows gradually through repetition, discipline, and consistent effort. Internal belief becomes essential during these silent seasons because it keeps a person moving when external validation is absent. Your identity also follows what you believe internally. If someone constantly believes they're incapable, unworthy, or limited, their actions begin shrinking around those assumptions. They avoid risks. They lower standards. They stop pursuing growth because mentally they already accepted defeat. But when a person starts believing they can improve, adapt, and overcome challenges, their behavior expands. They become more courageous because belief changes what feels possible. The environment around you can either strengthen or weaken internal belief. Negative influences constantly feed fear, comparison, and limitation into the mind. Many people slowly lose confidence because they spend too much time around discouraging voices. Strong individuals protect their mindset carefully because they understand repeated negativity eventually affects perception. What you hear repeatedly influences what you begin believing about yourself. Discipline also strengthens belief. Every promise you keep to yourself becomes evidence that you are capable of growth. Every difficult task completed increases self-respect. Internal belief grows stronger through action because the mind starts recognizing consistency. Confidence built through discipline becomes more stable than confidence built only through emotion. Fear often appears strongest before growth happens. This is because the mind naturally resists uncertainty. Many people interpret fear as a sign to stop, but successful individuals interpret fear differently. They understand discomfort is often connected to expansion. Instead of retreating, they continue moving forward while fear is still present. Their belief becomes stronger than temporary emotional resistance. Success is not created only by talent or intelligence. Many gifted individuals never reach their potential because they lack the internal belief necessary to continue during difficult seasons. Meanwhile, others with fewer advantages achieve extraordinary growth because they developed resilience, discipline, and belief strong enough to survive setbacks. Everything visible in your future begins invisibly within your thinking first. The way you see yourself influences the standards you accept, the actions you take, and the persistence you maintain during adversity. Long before the world notices achievement, the foundation is already being built internally through belief, focus, and consistent mental conditioning. Success begins in silence before it becomes visible in reality. The external results people admire are usually the final expression of an internal mindset that refused to surrender long before recognition ever arrived. The standards you tolerate quietly shape your future identity. Every decision you accept repeatedly becomes part of the person you are becoming. Most people believe identity changes through dramatic moments, but real transformation usually happens through small daily standards that are either raised or lowered over time. What you allow consistently in your habits, mindset, discipline, and environment slowly determines the quality of your future life. Standards are powerful because they operate silently. They influence your behavior even when you are not consciously thinking about them. The way you manage your time, the excuses you tolerate, the effort you give, and the people you surround yourself with all reflect your personal standards. Whether high or low, those standards eventually become normal to you. Once something becomes normal, your mind stops resisting it. This is why people often remain stuck without realizing it. They slowly adapt to behaviors that weaken their potential. They tolerate inconsistency, distraction, negativity, and laziness until those patterns become part of daily life. At first, the decline is almost invisible, a missed opportunity here, a delayed responsibility there, a promise broken quietly to yourself. But repetition changes identity. What you repeatedly accept eventually shapes what you become. Strong individuals understand that success is deeply connected to standards. They do not wait for motivation to control their actions. They build systems and habits that reflect the level of person they want to become. Their standards remain stable even when emotions change. This consistency creates trust within themselves because every disciplined action reinforces self-respect. The dangerous thing about low standards is that they often feel comfortable in the beginning. Comfort can disguise decline. Many people choose immediate ease without realizing they are slowly lowering expectations for their future. They avoid difficult conversations, challenging goals, disciplined routines, and uncomfortable growth. Over time, this creates a weaker version of themselves, not because they lack potential, but because they repeatedly tolerated behaviors beneath their capabilities. Your environment also influences the standards you accept. People naturally adapt to the expectations around them. If you spend enough time around individuals who normalize excuses, negativity, and mediocrity, your own standards gradually begin falling. The mind absorbs what it sees consistently. This is why protecting your environment matters. Growth becomes difficult when your surroundings constantly encourage limitation. High standards are not about perfection. They are about intentional living. A disciplined person still experiences setbacks, mistakes, and difficult seasons. The difference is they refuse to permanently settle in weakness. They continue correcting themselves instead of becoming comfortable with decline. Their standards create accountability because they know their future depends on repeated daily choices. Many individuals want extraordinary results while maintaining average standards. They desire success but tolerate procrastination. They want confidence but tolerate self-doubt. They want discipline but tolerate constant distraction. The problem is not lack of ambition. The problem is inconsistency between what they want and what they repeatedly allow. Your standards influence how you respond to pressure. A person with low standards quits quickly when challenges appear because discomfort feels unfamiliar. A person with strong standards has trained themselves to continue despite resistance. Discipline becomes part of identity because they practiced it repeatedly. Their mindset remains stronger during difficult moments because they built habits supporting resilience rather than excuses. Self-respect is deeply connected to the standards you maintain privately. Every promise you keep to yourself strengthens confidence internally. Every responsibility handled with discipline reinforces trust in your own character. But every repeated excuse weakens that trust. Eventually, people begin doubting themselves not because they are incapable, but because they trained themselves to avoid accountability. The strongest transformations often begin with raising small standards consistently, waking up on time, finishing responsibilities fully, protecting focus, speaking with purpose, choosing growth over comfort repeatedly. Small disciplined actions may appear insignificant individually, but together they shape identity powerfully over time. Your future is not created only by major decisions. It is built through the standards you repeat daily when nobody is watching. The habits you tolerate today become the character you carry tomorrow. This is why personal growth requires honesty. You must recognize where you have been accepting less than your potential demands. Fear often convinces people to lower standards because growth feels uncomfortable. It is easier to settle than to challenge yourself continuously. But temporary comfort creates long-term regret when people realize they spent years living below their capabilities. Strong individuals understand that discomfort connected to growth is healthier than comfort connected to stagnation. The standards you protect become the foundation of your identity. If you tolerate weakness repeatedly, weakness becomes familiar. If you tolerate discipline consistently, strength becomes natural. Your life gradually reflects whatever standards you continue accepting internally and externally. Everything you repeatedly allow is shaping the person you are becoming. Your future identity is not formed suddenly. It is quietly constructed through the standards you refuse to compromise every single day. Fear loses power when purpose becomes stronger than comfort. Most people are not held back because they lack ability. They are held back because fear convinces them to remain where life feels safe and familiar. The human mind naturally seeks comfort because comfort protects it from uncertainty, rejection, and failure. But growth rarely exists inside comfortable routines. Real transformation begins the moment purpose becomes more important than temporary emotional safety. Fear is powerful because it speaks through hesitation. It tells people to wait longer, prepare more, and avoid risk. It creates convincing excuses that feel logical in the moment. Many individuals spend years delaying their potential because fear disguises itself as caution. They convince themselves the timing is wrong, the opportunity is uncertain, or the challenge is too difficult. In reality, they are often protecting comfort more than protecting their future. Purpose changes that mindset completely. When someone discovers a meaningful reason to grow, fear no longer controls every decision. The discomfort of staying the same becomes heavier than the discomfort of taking action. A person with purpose understands that avoiding growth creates its own form of pain. They realize remaining trapped in limitation eventually becomes more painful than facing uncertainty. This is why strong individuals continue moving even when fear remains present. Courage does not mean fear disappears completely. Courage means purpose becomes stronger than the emotional resistance trying to stop progress. Fear may still exist internally, but it no longer controls direction. Purpose creates focus powerful enough to override hesitation. Many people wait for fear to disappear before taking action. They believe confidence arrives first and action comes later. But confidence is often created through action itself. Every step taken despite fear weakens fear's influence. Every challenge faced builds evidence that growth is possible. Over time, the mind begins understanding that discomfort is not danger. It becomes proof of expansion. Comfort can quietly become a trap. In the beginning, it feels harmless to avoid difficult conversations, postpone responsibilities, or delay important decisions. But repeated comfort slowly weakens ambition. People begin lowering standards to protect temporary emotional ease. They stop challenging themselves because familiarity feels safer than uncertainty. Eventually, they become prisoners of routines that no longer help them grow. Purpose disrupts this cycle. A person driven by purpose develops a different relationship with struggle. Difficulties are no longer viewed only as obstacles. They become part of the process. Pain gains meaning when connected to something important. This is why people with strong purpose often endure hardships that others would immediately quit. Their vision pulls them forward even when the journey becomes uncomfortable. Your purpose influences your resilience during difficult seasons. Without purpose, obstacles feel unbearable because there is no larger reason supporting persistence. Small failures become emotionally overwhelming. Temporary setbacks feel permanent. But when purpose exists, the mind interprets adversity differently. Challenges become lessons instead of proof to surrender. Fear also loses strength when identity changes. Many individuals see themselves as fragile, incapable, or unprepared, so fear controls their behavior easily. But when someone begins identifying as disciplined, resilient, and growth-oriented, their actions shift. They stop asking whether challenges feel comfortable. They ask whether their choices align with the person they are trying to become. Strong people understand that comfort and growth rarely coexist for long periods. Every meaningful achievement requires entering unfamiliar territory. New levels of success demand new levels of discipline, responsibility, and emotional strength. Remaining comfortable may protect short-term emotions, but it often destroys long-term potential. The environment around you also affects whether purpose or comfort becomes stronger. Negative influences encourage safety, excuses, and avoidance. Growth-oriented environments encourage challenge, accountability, and action. The people surrounding you either strengthen your purpose or reinforce your fear. This is why protecting your mindset and environment matters so much during personal transformation. Purpose creates energy that comfort cannot provide. Comfort seeks convenience. Purpose creates endurance. A person chasing comfort stops when things become difficult. A person driven by purpose continues because their vision matters more than temporary struggle. They understand that lasting fulfillment is earned through growth, not through avoiding discomfort. Every successful individual eventually reaches moments where fear attempts to stop progress. The difference is they refuse to obey it completely. They move while uncertain. They continue while uncomfortable. They trust their purpose enough to keep taking action even before results appear. This repeated courage slowly weakens fear's control over their lives. Fear survives through avoidance. The longer people avoid challenges, the stronger fear becomes mentally. But every time you confront discomfort intentionally, fear loses influence. The mind learns that growth is survivable. Confidence begins replacing hesitation because action creates proof stronger than imagination. The future belongs to people willing to value purpose more than comfort. Temporary safety may feel easier today, but purpose creates the strength, discipline, and resilience necessary for long-term transformation. When your vision becomes more important than protecting comfort, fear stops being the master of your decisions and starts becoming proof that you are moving toward growth. Discipline rewires your mindset faster than motivation ever will. Motivation is powerful for starting, but discipline is what creates transformation that lasts. Many people spend years waiting to feel inspired before taking action, not realizing that feelings are unstable. Emotions rise and fall constantly. Some days energy feels strong, and other days it disappears completely. If progress depends only on motivation, consistency becomes impossible. Discipline changes that because it teaches the mind to act regardless of emotion. The strongest individuals do not rely entirely on how they feel. They build habits, routines, and standards that continue even when excitement fades. This is why discipline creates lasting growth. Every time you take action without waiting for perfect emotional conditions, your brain learns that progress matters more than comfort. Over time, this repeated behavior reshapes identity itself. Motivation often creates temporary intensity. A person watches something inspiring, feels emotionally energized, and suddenly wants to change their life overnight. But emotional excitement fades quickly when difficulty appears. Early mornings become harder, challenges become frustrating, results take longer than expected. Without discipline, many people quit during this stage because motivation alone cannot carry them through resistance. Discipline operates differently. Discipline trains the mind through repetition. It creates stability because actions are no longer dependent on mood. A disciplined person understands that consistency matters more than temporary excitement. They continue showing up during days when progress feels invisible because they trust the process more than their emotions. Every disciplined action strengthens mental resilience. Waking up when you want to stay comfortable teaches control. Finishing responsibilities when distractions appear teaches focus. Continuing after setbacks teaches endurance. These repeated actions send powerful instructions to the brain. The mind slowly adapts to discipline until disciplined behavior begins feeling natural instead of forced. This is how mindset changes happen. Most people think mindset changes through positive thinking alone, but real mental transformation usually happens through repeated action. Your brain believes what your behavior repeatedly proves. Every promise you keep to yourself builds trust internally. Every difficult task completed increases self-respect. Discipline creates evidence that you are capable of growth, and that evidence becomes stronger than temporary self-doubt. Comfort weakens the mind when it becomes a habit. The brain naturally seeks easy paths because comfort protects energy and reduces stress. But constantly choosing comfort trains the mind to avoid challenge. A person who repeatedly escapes discomfort becomes mentally fragile over time. Small obstacles feel overwhelming because the brain has not been trained to tolerate resistance consistently. Discipline reverses this pattern. The more often you do difficult things intentionally, the stronger your mindset becomes. Challenges stop feeling threatening because your brain adapts to effort and discomfort. What once felt impossible slowly becomes normal through repetition. Discipline expands emotional capacity because the mind learns it can function effectively even when conditions are not ideal. Many successful individuals appear confident externally, but their confidence was built privately through disciplined habits repeated daily. Confidence is rarely created by words alone. It develops when actions repeatedly confirm capability. A disciplined person trusts themselves more because they consistently follow through regardless of emotion. Discipline also improves focus. Modern distractions constantly pull attention toward comfort, entertainment, and instant gratification. Many people lose momentum not because they lack goals, but because they lack control over attention. Discipline trains the mind to prioritize long-term growth over short-term pleasure. This mental control becomes a major advantage because focused individuals move with clarity while distracted individuals remain inconsistent. Fear loses influence when discipline becomes strong. Fear often grows when people avoid action repeatedly. The longer someone delays difficult tasks, the larger those tasks appear mentally. Discipline breaks this cycle by forcing movement despite discomfort. Action weakens fear because the mind realizes growth is survivable. Over time, courage increases naturally because disciplined behavior creates emotional strength. Identity is shaped through repeated behavior more than temporary intention. A person does not become disciplined because they say they want success. They become disciplined because they repeatedly practice disciplined actions. Every consistent choice strengthens the identity connected to it. Eventually, the brain stops viewing discipline as something external and starts accepting it as part of character. The powerful thing about discipline is that it creates momentum even during difficult seasons. Motivation disappears during stress, disappointment, and fatigue, but disciplined habits continue operating. This stability allows progress to continue when emotions fluctuate. People who rely only on inspiration often stop moving during adversity. Disciplined individuals continue building quietly because their systems remain stronger than temporary feelings. Long-term success depends less on emotional intensity and more on consistent execution. Small disciplined actions repeated daily eventually create massive transformation. The brain rewires itself according to repeated patterns. If those patterns are built around excuses, procrastination, and comfort, limitation grows stronger. If those patterns are built around consistency, responsibility, and action, resilience grows stronger instead. Discipline changes the way you think because it changes the way you behave. The mind begins adapting to whatever standards you repeat consistently. Over time, disciplined action stops feeling like struggle and starts becoming identity. That is why discipline creates lasting transformation faster than motivation ever will. The environment around you constantly influences your mental programming. Every conversation, every relationship, every piece of content, and every atmosphere you spend time in quietly shapes the way you think. Most people underestimate how strongly their surroundings affect their mindset. They believe their thoughts are completely independent, but the human mind naturally absorbs repeated influence from the environment it lives in daily. Your environment becomes a form of silent conditioning. If negativity surrounds you constantly, negative thinking slowly begins feeling normal. If excuses are repeated around you every day, your standards begin lowering without you even realizing it. If fear, doubt, and hopelessness dominate your surroundings, eventually your mind starts adapting to those emotional patterns. People become influenced not only by direct advice, but also by repeated exposure to attitudes, behaviors, and beliefs. This is why two individuals placed in different environments often develop completely different mindsets over time. One environment encourages growth, discipline, and responsibility. The other normalizes distraction, laziness, and limitation. Even if both people started with similar potential, their surroundings gradually shape their identity through repetition. The human brain is designed to adapt to what it experiences consistently. The dangerous thing about toxic environments is that they rarely feel destructive in the beginning. Negative thinking becomes normalized slowly. Complaining becomes routine. Mediocrity becomes acceptable. People stop challenging themselves because everyone around them is comfortable staying the same. Over time, ambition weakens because the environment no longer supports growth. Strong individuals understand that protecting their mindset is necessary for success. They are careful about what they allow into their mental space because they know repeated exposure eventually shapes behavior. The music they listen to, the people they spend time with, the conversations they entertain, and the content they consume all influence the quality of their thinking. Your mind cannot continuously absorb negativity while expecting positive growth. Many people want confidence while surrounding themselves with discouragement. They want discipline while living inside distraction. They want focus while constantly consuming noise and chaos. Eventually, the environment begins overpowering intention because repeated influence shapes mental patterns stronger than occasional motivation. Growth-oriented environments create different psychological effects. When you spend time around disciplined people, discipline begins feeling more natural. When you observe individuals taking responsibility for their lives, accountability becomes more familiar. Positive environments challenge you to think bigger because they expose you to standards beyond comfort and limitation. This does not mean successful people avoid every difficult situation. It means they become intentional about what influences them consistently. They recognize that energy spreads between people, fear spreads, negativity spreads, laziness spreads. But ambition, resilience, focus, and discipline spread as well. Human beings unconsciously mirror the environments they remain connected to repeatedly. The digital environment matters just as much as the physical one. Social media, entertainment, and online content constantly feed information into the brain. If a person spends hours consuming negativity, comparison, gossip, and hopelessness, their mindset eventually reflects those patterns. The brain cannot separate repeated input from long-term conditioning. What enters your mind daily eventually influences your emotions, decisions, and self-image. This is why mental discipline requires environmental awareness. You cannot expect powerful thinking while constantly surrounding yourself with destructive influence. Your focus weakens when your environment constantly encourages distraction. Your confidence weakens when your surroundings repeatedly reinforce insecurity. The mind becomes stronger or weaker depending on what it is trained to absorb consistently. Many people remain trapped in limiting environments because familiarity feels comfortable. Even unhealthy patterns can begin feeling normal when repeated long enough. This is why personal growth often requires separation from influences that no longer support your future. Sometimes the biggest transformation happens not by adding something new, but by removing environments that continuously weaken your mindset. Your standards are also shaped by your surroundings. People naturally adjust expectations based on what is normal around them. If average effort becomes the standard in your environment, pushing yourself harder may initially feel uncomfortable. But if excellence becomes normal around you, discipline starts feeling expected rather than extreme. Strong individuals intentionally create environments supporting growth. They organize routines that encourage focus. They spend time with people who challenge them positively. They reduce unnecessary negativity and distractions. They understand that success is not only built through personal effort, but also through repeated exposure to influences aligned with their goals. The mind is always being programmed by something. If you are not intentionally shaping your environment will shape you automatically. Every repeated influence leaves a psychological effect behind. Your beliefs, emotional patterns, confidence, and habits are constantly responding to what surrounds you daily. This is why protecting your environment is ultimately protecting your future identity. The atmosphere around you becomes part of the mindset within you. Growth becomes easier when your surroundings strengthen discipline, purpose, and possibility instead of reinforcing fear and limitation. Over time, the environment you tolerate becomes the reality your mind adapts to and eventually reflects through your life. Real transformation happens when your daily actions match your future vision. Most people dream about a better future, but very few align their daily behavior with the life they claim they want. Vision alone is not enough. Ambition alone is not enough. A person may imagine success constantly, but if their habits, routines, and decisions continue moving in the opposite direction, their future never changes. Transformation begins the moment actions and vision finally start working together instead of against each other. Many individuals love the idea of growth, but resist the discipline required to create it. They want confidence without discomfort. They want achievement without sacrifice. They want change while protecting the habits keeping them the same. But the future responds more to repeated behavior than temporary desire. Your actions reveal what you truly prioritize, regardless of what you say you want. The gap between vision and action is where most people lose momentum. A person may dream about becoming stronger, more disciplined, more successful, or more focused, yet their daily routine remains controlled by distraction, procrastination, and inconsistency. Over time, this creates frustration because internally, they know their actions are not aligned with their goals. The mind loses trust when promises are repeated but never followed by consistent effort. Real transformation begins when behavior changes daily. Every disciplined choice becomes evidence that you are serious about your future. Waking up earlier, protecting your focus, learning consistently, managing time better, and continuing through discomfort all strengthen alignment between who you are today and who you want to become tomorrow. Small actions may seem insignificant individually, but repeated consistently, they reshape identity completely. Your future is built through patterns, not isolated moments. Many people wait for one dramatic opportunity to change everything, but lasting growth rarely happens that way. Success usually develops quietly through routines repeated long before visible results appear. The person you eventually become is strongly connected to the habits you practice consistently when nobody is watching. This is why self-discipline matters so much. Discipline closes the distance between vision and execution. Without discipline, dreams remain emotional entertainment instead of reality. A disciplined individual understands that feelings change constantly, but standards must remain stable. They continue acting in alignment with their goals, even during days when motivation disappears. The human brain also responds powerfully to repeated action. Every time you behave in alignment with your future vision, your identity strengthens internally. The mind begins accepting growth as normal instead of impossible. Confidence increases naturally because actions create proof stronger than words. But when behavior repeatedly contradicts goals, Self-doubt grows stronger because the mind notices inconsistency. Fear often appears during transformation because growth requires leaving familiar patterns behind. Many people stay trapped in routines they dislike simply because those routines feel comfortable. Change demands uncertainty, and uncertainty creates emotional resistance. But staying the same eventually becomes more painful than the discomfort required for growth. Strong individuals understand this and continue moving forward despite temporary fear. Your environment can either support or weaken alignment between actions and vision. Negative surroundings encourage distraction and comfort. Growth-oriented environments encourage responsibility, discipline, and focus. This is why successful individuals intentionally protect their routines and mental space. They understand consistency becomes harder when everything around them promotes inconsistency. Transformation also requires honesty. Many people claim they want extraordinary futures while maintaining average habits daily. They want better health while neglecting discipline. They want financial growth while wasting time. They want confidence while avoiding difficult challenges. Eventually, reality reflects behavior more than intention. Your daily actions always reveal the direction your life is truly moving. Strong people understand that identity is built through repetition. Every action either reinforces your future vision or strengthens the habits keeping you limited. The decision to continue during difficult moments matters because those moments shape character deeply. Anyone can stay committed when conditions feel easy. Real growth happens when discipline remains stronger than excuses. Patience is another important part of transformation. Meaningful progress often develops slowly. Many people quit because they expect immediate, visible results. They underestimate how long real change can take. But successful individuals trust consistent action even before rewards appear. They know that invisible progress eventually creates visible outcomes. The most powerful thing about aligned action is that it creates momentum. Once daily behavior starts matching long-term vision, the mind begins operating differently. Focus becomes sharper, confidence becomes stronger, self-respect increases because promises are finally being honored through action instead of words alone. Your future identity is not created only by what you hope for. It is created by what you repeatedly do. Every day you are either strengthening the habits connected to your vision or reinforcing the patterns connected to limitation. Transformation becomes real when your routine reflects the person you are trying to become. The life you imagine will remain distant until your daily actions begin supporting it consistently. The moment your behavior aligns with your vision, growth stops being only an idea and starts becoming your reality.